So we are moving on to our technical sessions. So welcome you all to the Times of India Industry Academia Conference 2020, which is being organized in association with Vedanta and Maxit. And our sponsors are Lead School of Management and Web Cardio. So on behalf of all of us, we would like to welcome you all to the session 1. Before we move to the session 1, there is a small video which is coming up on Vedatma. So over to the organizers to please play the video. I think there is some technical issue that is to take some time to play the video. So we'll just move on to the session because we may play the video in between. That as Professor Debashish was saying, like there are advantages and disadvantages of this whole medium. Okay, so welcome to the first session. The first session is on technology and business and how technology is enabling the business. So we have our speakers today are Mr. Rohit Paranjpe, who is a CEO of Sugar Boss Networks, Ms. Devi Mohan, co-founder and CEO of Bundmark, Mr. Eldo Kurvilla, who is the founder of Vedatma, Mr. Arjun Mohan, who is the CEO of Upgrad. Mr. Robin Tommy is with us, who is the head Rapid Labs Tata Consultancy Services. The moderator for this session is Dr. Arun Surendran. And to talk about Dr. Arun Surendran, Dr. Arun Surendran is a strategic director of Trinity Engineering College. And he's a very learned personality. He holds his master's and PhD in aerospace engineering from the Texas and A&M University, and after his BTech from IIT Bombay. He was awarded the prestigious Upright Outstanding International Student Award, the highest honor given by the Texas A&M University to any international student. Dr. Arun is the Honorary Fellow for Robotics for the Kerala Startup Mission and Senior Fellow of the Defense Research and Studies think tank. He's a founder director of ATSI.io, Cybersecurity Solutions, and Dr. Arun serves as operations advisor to Aldra Construction Conglomerate in Middle East. So with those words, Dr. Arun, welcome to the Times of India Industry Academy Conference 2020, and over to you to moderate the session.
Thank you. Very good morning. Wonderful morning to listen to Dr. Debashish Chatterjee, as always. Vineet, thank you for that very nice introduction. I think your main point was to prove that I'm somebody who has straddled academia and industry, and therefore in tech and business, I could probably pick the brains of the wonderful, eminent, energetic young speakers whom we have assembled here this morning. The topic, and I would like to thank Maxed. I am one of the members since when Maxed was started, and then Times of India Group, Vedatma, and Web Cardio and Lead. So we are here to talk about, I think this was there in the first brief, but then it got lost as we went along with the publicity material, about disruption and challenges. And then industry academia confluence. And that's a pretty nice word because we already brought up the point about the major gap. And then we are thinking, should the gap ever be bridged? Can we just be aware that there is a gap? Can we build bridges across it? And so many other things that can be discussed as we go along. So, and as he mentioned, passion needs to be moderated. So I am the moderator for this session to moderate the passions of the speakers, who are all extremely energetic about their particular areas of expertise and activity. So here is how we'll go about this. I'll introduce the speakers one by one, and then after the introduction, the speaker will get, I am told, a maximum of 10 minutes because we have to finish by 12 noon as much as possible, and then some of the speakers are in a hurry with other meetings as well. So 10 minutes, and then we'll once we have covered all the speakers, we'll come back and take questions. And I have my own bunch of questions, but I'm hoping that there are more intelligent listeners around the world tuning in who will be asking much more interesting questions. So if I am looking at my mobile phone, I'm not being distracted. I'm not being a multitasking claimant. It's just because that's where the team is going to put up the questions that they have filtered to be asked to you one by one. So let me start with Arjun Mohan, because I think Arjun has something else scheduled later on in between this session. So Arjun is an EdTech leader, so absolutely the right guy to start off this session on tech and business. He was with Byju's. He's an expert in sales, marketing, and product development. So before Byju's, if you look at his resume, there is Titan, there is TRIL, there is automotive, all kinds of industries that he has vast experience in. And now he is with Upgrad. So Upgrad as such beautifully fits into the space that Dr. Debashish Chatterjee was talking about. So there are these vanity degrees which will always be there, the high profile brand names always be there, but there is this massive chunk of population in the country that just wants jobs, would like to have skills that would help them get started, do things, and become doers. So without further ado, over to Arjun. Let's listen to you about tech and business disruption and challenges.
Yep. Thanks, Arun. Thanks a lot. So I was basically trying to think what should I speak about, but I would say that last 10 minutes of you speaking and Professor Debashish speaking gives me a lot of points, right? So let me just start with the whole academia industry confluence you're talking about, right? And I think it's a brilliant point Professor said, that gap is designed to be there. Why are we bothered about the gap? The gap is designed to be there because we don't really know which way things are going, right? In future, we may realize that, okay, whatever we are doing in industry is suddenly obsolete and we will go back to the academia. So I think for companies like us, we are supposed to be part of the ecosystem to bridge that gap to a large extent. So what I'm seeing today, especially after the post-COVID, is that a lot of status quo is changing. Everything is getting questioned today. The good part is that the trust between people have gone up tremendously. We are okay with letting our employees work from home. We are okay with letting our students study from home. A lot of things have changed. At the same time, the data we are creating online has, I don't think anyone can even measure it. It has gone up by that level. As a result of which, the skills required for future has also completely changed. Digitalization is no longer an option. It's a necessity. At every stage in a person's career, you'll be forced to learn about it. The buzzwords which are going around earlier, like AI, ML, data science, cloud computing, cyber security, these are like dinner conversation terms now. And you will have to have some understanding. So I was recently talking, and I keep talking to the customers. I was talking to an employee, 50 years of age, who has signed up for one of our courses, an MBA in FinTech, which we do with OP Jindal. And we are into degrees. Okay, I'll come to that as a second point. So I asked him, okay, what made you take this decision at 50 years? He said that, see, I still have a few more years for retirement and I don't want to leave before that. I don't have a choice now. I have to learn what's happening because everyone is online today. I mean, no branches, nothing happens. If I don't know what are the security issues and what is FinTech doing in, I as a banker is obsolete today. So what's happening is that it's no longer technology or the engineers doing it. Every single domain is getting digitalized to the next level. So my only input to the students who are listening to us will be, it is important that you are up to date on what's happening. I'm not trying to argue that you should not be proficient in theory. Theory is important. That gives you the base, but you should also be proficient on what is happening. The customer or the company you're going to join in a few months would expect you to know what is happening around the world. So if you're joining an FMCG company, please read about what are the innovations which has happened in sales and distribution. If you're joining a marketing role, please understand how digital marketing is done and how digital marketing has completely revolutionized what is happening in branding today. So these are a few aspects which you should do. And I'm just talking as, because the kind of customers, kind of people who are listening to us. Second point I want to just touch about is the whole industry academia confluence point Professor Arun was talking about. See, that's the biggest thing in my opinion, which has happened out of COVID. We may end up living in a world where you will not be able to distinguish between an offline player in education and an online player in education. It is moving towards a hybrid model where every institution is forced to understand that there are certain things which can be done better online and there are certain social aspects which cannot be done at all online, and hence you need the offline component of it. Along with that, there are a few more revolutionary things which has happened in our country. For instance, the online degrees, which the government approved in last budget, the new education policy, all of this have also moved regulation in tune with that. So now you can actually go out and take an online degree, an online MBA or an online BBA or an online BCom, sitting at your home, completely using a laptop or a computer. And the best part is that it is not organizations like Upgrad who gives you this accreditation or stamp. It is organizations like IMK who does it. It is just that from an offline, they also have a version of online today. Now, this, in my opinion, is going to be revolutionary for a country like India. Because suddenly what will happen is that a student can work and study together. A student who decides that my financial condition is not good and who is dropping out after school these days suddenly have an option to go online, study for as low as 20,000-30,000 per semester and also continue his work. Now, in my opinion, for a young country, for an energetic country like India, it is going to revolutionize things. And we will bridge the gap which academia feels now between theory and industry. Companies like us, EdTech companies, will bridge this gap because we are in both the worlds. We have industry expertise and we have tie-up and partnership with the best institute. Just to add that, one of the EdTech companies, IMK, will be working on. First EdTech company, IMK will be Upgrad. We just completed the formalities, and we'll start with the skilling courses. But the point is that, as Professor rightly said, I think in a country like India, accreditation is very, very important. So what we are trying to do is create a system where entry and exit is flexible. If you're doing a 3-year degree and exit out of the degree in the 3rd year, you get a degree certificate, a BBA, BCA, BCom, whatever it is. If you exit in the 2nd year, you get a diploma certificate. And if you're exiting in the 1st year, you get a PGC, or you get a diploma certificate. So this is a certification, diploma, and degree. So this is going to change everything, in my opinion, because you're going to get the same impact, same accreditation, the same learning, or maybe plus learning because of the industry interface, all sitting at home without leaving your job. So these are the trends which I am seeing. And and in my opinion, everything is going to change. It'll be a hybrid world we'll be living in a few months from now. All right. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you, Arjun. That was quite enlightening because you brought in so many of the real terms into it. You know, we can always theorize about the gap, but then when you say IIMK accreditation and upgrade program, that makes a lot of sense. We can put it concretely. I think one of the things that people usually forget is when Charles Schwab said it will be lifelong learning in Industry 4.0, there was an opportunity to do lifelong teaching as well. The moment you go into a higher degree, you can very well tune into a platform that will help you teach people who are coming right after you. So that opportunity needs to be tapped. And I think that will be taken up. And I'm reminded of something that Sajan Pillai, the previous CEO of UST Global, mentioned about this major gap. Once we had a meeting of all the principals of engineering colleges from Kerala. And he said, it's interesting that if you go to US, you will see that the industry is seriously worried about what disruption is going to come from Yale and MIT and Stanford, because the students there are building things which could just shake the industry. But here you are in Kerala, where all the principals are coming to a software company and asking, should we teach them Java, Python, and what is the next language that needs to be taught? So who leads this? I think that is what Dr. Chatterjee also mentioned. The leadership has to come back to academia, and it has to be a give and take. We learn each other, we do the push-pull as we go along. So thank you so much, Arjun. Now, the next speaker, we have an order of speakers that was given, which is part of the moderation process that has been set up for the program. This will be Rohit Paranjpe. Very, very good morning to you, Rohit. He is the CEO of Sugarbox, which is a lovely, lovely name to put for any company. When you call something Sugarbox, you've automatically attracted customers already to that point. Lovely name. And they do a tremendous service, which is OTT delivery, highly optimized, so that, you know, linking the connections and so on. As an engineer, as a technologist, I was highly attracted to that model as well. He's a serial entrepreneur in the digitainment, infotainment sector. And Z recently acquired, in 2017, they acquired Sugarbox. So let's hear from the man who is working on it. And as you can see, when we talk about digital divide, we are kind of ascribing a binary, as in haves and have-nots in terms of divide. But there is a gradation. For example, I am sitting here without the standard backdrop that was provided because my laptop won't support it. So I am part of the have-not at this point, but technically I'll be counted as a have. So over to Rohit. Let's listen to you for 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Arun. And I'll take up from from the conversation that we were having earlier. With what the professor said, what the upgrad said. Finally, it comes down to everything is going digital, right? And digital is becoming fundamental. And I'll start by giving a very small example, right? We're a small company, about 100 people. We went into lockdown. And the most interesting part was while everyone was in office, working out of office, it was a level playing field for everyone, right? Everyone had access to the same facilities, literally the same chair, the same desk, the same meeting rooms, most importantly, the same internet connection. And it was very much a level playing field where everyone then had a same base setup to perform and deliver, right? And then we went into lockdown, and literally the first month of lockdown, and we do monthly reviews, I could see that the performance of people have changed drastically, right? And that got me thinking, I said, what's the problem here? And which is where we sort of started doing our first HR outreach to every single person, right? Saying, guys, what's the problem? And here's the funny part: the level playing field had changed. So now people were dealing with not having a Wi-Fi connection at home. People were dealing with having poor, network coverage at home. People were dealing with not having a good enough chair to sit on. People were dealing with not having peace at home. I actually have one person specifically who used to work for us. Still continues to. He actually had a really bad story wherein he said, we are 7 people who live in a 1-room kitchen house, right? So I don't even have space to sit. I actually go outside my house, sit under a tree and work. How do you expect this to play out, right? So I think it's very easy for us to say that, oh, we are going digital, right? But the way, as easy as it is, it gets its own set of challenges that I don't think we as a country, and it's not just India as a country, we as a world are ready for, right? And now I will flip over to what happened once we went into lockdown, right? The simplest thing, everyone I'm sure heard OTT platforms throttling bandwidth, OTT platforms controlling the amount of quality of video, right? So on and so forth. And for the longest time, all of us do this. I have done this till about 4 or 5 years back. Whenever something like this does not work, we're like, the network providers are not doing a good enough job, right? The internet infrastructure providers are not doing a good enough job. It's actually none of this. When you dig a little deeper in it, and I think for everyone who's listening, right, this is probably my advice to everybody who has a problem, right? It's very easy to complain about it. But I think we should sort of take that one extra step to say why, right? And that's what Professor Chatterjee was also trying to say. So many times why becomes so important. And if you dig in a little deeper in terms of why do the internet challenges or the infrastructure challenges or the network coverage challenges or the network capacity challenges exist, you will see that finally internet is an infrastructure business, right? You are deploying hardware. This hardware needs to be geographically deployed. So you're talking about 1 square kilometer of area in which you are going to deploy infrastructure. And the only way I can make money from this infrastructure is by the number of people that will subscribe to my service and the amount of money that each one of them will pay me. Right? Now, by the very virtue of this problem, a city like Bombay, which is very dense, which has a lot of people in 1 square kilometer, and who will be able to pay me a certain amount of money, will always be profitable. But if I move from here to, let's say, a tier 2, tier 3 city, now all of a sudden that 1 square kilometer covers lesser number of people. Their affordability is even lesser, right? So now there's an exponential decrease in the amount of money that I can make. And now let's assume I go to a village with 3,000 people and 800 people with a smartphone. All of a sudden, this village is never going to be profitable or profit making or even break even for me for the next 2 decades, which is not even the life of my infrastructure, right? So it's actually an economics problem to solve. It's not really a technology problem to solve. Can technology solve this? Well, we can deploy internet all over the world. We can ensure that, and this is actually a very interesting conversation that I was having with an American company, wherein they are like, there's a huge problem in America with connectivity or internet connectivity in the Midwest, right? And the real problem is in the Midwest, you have one family literally living on a 2 square mile area, right? Now, how will an infrastructure company ever cover this? So this is basically where the problems are. And I think where India is, and India is quite lucky, right? Because India saw an investment of 200,000 crores. That's not a small amount by any standard in any country in this world. And we are still where we are today, right? We are still in a place wherein, who is happy here with their internet connection? I would also like to know. So this is basically where we are from a state of internet. And I think it's a problem that's so large. It's a problem that probably is one of the most important problems to be solved as we move into this digital/hybrid age, where everyone is going to get dependent. And this is where really, you start looking at it. So if you look at the evolution of internet in India, today you have 600 million people who are connected, right? But if you really see what do these 600 million people do, you will only see that the top 100 million are actually the only ones who use the internet for all its purposes, right? The remaining 500 million, for them, the identity of the internet is, Google, YouTube, it is Facebook, WhatsApp, and TikTok, right? That's literally what the internet for them is. And if you really want them to transition, EdTech needs to start coming into this. FinTech has had a huge boost through UPI. FinTech is very much penetrated in here. But you're going to have multiple different types of local commerce initiatives that come in, right? Healthcare initiatives that come in. Telemedicine becomes so important. And as we move towards this, digital first or a hybrid digital physical world, I think we also need to start paying enough attention to how do we create the infrastructure of the future, right? To be able to support this. Today, I just spoke about digital, but let me go a step above to talk about a hybrid digital physical experience, right? So today what happens is so let's take an example of a hotel. You have a Marriott app, right? This is a digital world app for you to interact with a property. But the moment you go inside the hotel, this app is now useless. You can't do anything with this app. The same thing exists inside a hospital, inside a mall, inside a retail store, inside a restaurant. And so you now have to start building systems. You now have to start building infrastructure that actually, like a user's journey is now going to merge in a hybrid digital physical world. The infrastructure and the technology also has to start evolving to sort of accommodate the same. That's pretty much my commentary on where we are and how infrastructure is going to play a very, very important role in addition to the entire transformation that is happening and will continue to happen in the near future.
Thank you so much, Rohit. That's wonderful, because Arjun started off with the hybrid model in education, and then you have brought it to the hybrid model when it comes to connectivity. And obviously, it's right that where is the level playing field anymore unless we manage to solve this problem and allow everybody seamless connectivity. I mean, I run the college. We went online the day after the first lockdown. But then we started realizing the kind of connectivity issues. It's the same device that they use to play PUBG that they come to the online classes. So the daily allowance of 1.5 GB is not enough. So then you have a choice to make between, let's say, mechanics of solids and PUBG. And the choice is pretty clear at that point where your bandwidth will go. So things need to get solved in that direction. And I was surprised to learn yesterday that Netflix actually made 300 million from still mailing DVDs in the US. So there are people who still receive the DVDs by mail, which means even the US has such a tremendous problem in terms of the connectivity infrastructure. We'll come back to the discussion. The next speaker here, yes, Robin Tommy. Always a delight to see you in webinars. Wonderful. The man who heads Rapid Labs of TCS. He is an innovator, a wonderful innovation ecosystem creator. He has been the winner of Innovista Awards a couple of times. He has, I think, close to 50 half-century in terms of patents and a couple of dozen journal papers. So a man who also has an academic inclination as well, and wonderful social impact projects coming from him, like WeHab and the virtual library and so on. So let's listen to Robin and his perspective on technology business disruption.
Thanks, Arun. So thank you for inviting me here. So let me start with one of the stories, or I would say the real life incidents, especially during the COVID time or during the beginning of the COVID time. Then I think I'll go into much more detail what actually happened. Okay. So when COVID started, so we have been working with the divinely able people, or I would rightly call it as the specially able society for almost like 4 years now, with multiple applications and bringing technology to them, research to them, and see how they can be on their own or improving their quality of life on a day-to-day basis. Now, when a lockdown came in, I would say like 50% of our applications were in vain, or I would say nothing happened or nothing could have been brought in because it's all school-centric. or it's institutional centric, especially for the case of cerebral palsy, autism, and kind of. So in March, when we started lockdown, at least 2 to 3 weeks, it was okay. But we started getting a lot of calls, okay, asking, is there something that we can do for children who are affected with CP? And you know that CP is a limb movement issue from birth. And they should get regular physiotherapy. And therapy is really important for their life, both from the cognitive perspective and also from their limb movement or physical ability perspective. Now, we started rethinking on the VHABs and the Verbos, a lot of platforms that we have done for them. So what we saw is that they are all sensor based, and how we can start bringing something for them, because we could when we were starting to collect all this, what is the actual scenario, how each one is performing, we could even see people going stiff. Look, 3 to 4 weeks without a therapy, especially during lockdown, you can think of people, they go stiff. They are completely on a wheelchair or completely on a bed. Now, parents were so, they went very skeptical. They don't know what to do next. They started calling physiotherapists, but there is nothing that they could do. So that's when they started asking for help all around, I would say, especially in Kerala. Multiple NGOs started reaching out, because we have been working with several NGOs all across Kerala in this. So that's when we thought, look, most of them had a cell phone, at least a smartphone, but it's not that a good smartphone or something, but and basic laptops were there. Why don't we start using that infrastructure? Like Rohit had earlier mentioned, here infrastructure is the most important problem that we have. We need to have sensors, blah, 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 to make all these things happen for all the physiotherapy process. There is a human involvement in there. So we started with like we have been already researching on this, how we can reduce the number of sensors and use the normal cameras and do kind of things. So I would say we started with a small experiment, especially on gesture analysis, pose analysis, and use technology for the physiotherapy. We cannot replace physiotherapy, as you know. It's something very, very it's a skill. It's more than a skill. It's also a knowledge. So you cannot replace that. But we are trying to augment it for people who are at home using augmented realities and artificial intelligence. I would say yes. Almost like we could reach out almost 2,000 plus children in this last 6 months and keep up their spirits going. So that's a big deal that we could bring in by bringing in the therapy, or I would say democratizing. We call it as the VHAB 2.0, or democratizing the therapy concept for the children up to 18 years, so that they start motivating them to do certain things at home. Okay. Play games, gamify them, and bring back their spirit that they can move. So they should not be, the confidence should not go down. So that's what we wanted to bring in. And we have been very successful. Everyday therapy sessions are happening now on a technology platform like the Zoom that we are doing today. We are doing that for the specially able world. Now, why I wanted to take this story here is while doing this exercise. So look, this is completely new. As the word you see there, rapid. Look, we have to do things rapidly from TCS perspective or the Tata. We are the rapid innovators both from volume and velocity perspective. Okay. Now, when we started all this pragmatic approach towards lockdown, sitting from home, understanding what can be done, because we needed labs, because we do humanoids. We had almost some of the humanoid deliveries to be done. We had those IoT use cases for multiple customers across the globe. So we were actually, I would say, hit in the sense we couldn't continue with all those things. So we had to plan parallelly on what needs to be done from customer perspective. So both these areas are there. I would say, so we, from TCS perspective, if you see, we have the 3 words that got going during especially during this COVID time is bring in the resilience, go for the adaptability model, and finally, purpose driven. So, and really important was for us was the purpose driven model. Now, more purpose driven means, we are understanding a lot of new things. We started being more productive, I would say, but on the cost of several other things, we have become more productive. But we wanted to help the society as fast as possible, because we have been doing a lot of things. We didn't want to stop it there, and they should not feel that we are not going to them at some point of time where they needed us. So even we coined a new model, I would say, engage, empower, and empathize, the 3E model during the lockdown period, to make sure that each and every attempt that we make with a customer to bring in new business, we have this model done. Okay. And also we were going very deep into understanding the concept of it, the power of depth, I would say, the power of understanding what is the much deeper concepts behind whatever that we do. As I told you earlier, it was more of rapid, so just cover the horizontals of it and depth was very less. But here what we started, we just started a small shift here, understanding more deep depth of it, or create and also inculcate more intelligence into whatever applications we started delivering. And I would say the pain points, when I say intelligence, intelligence is the right thing to say about the pain points. As you have seen, all the fellow panelists have been talking about actually understanding the problem. Then finding the completeness. Look, it's not that you just do something just for the sake of doing something and just getting it out there. You have to be with them, understand what they're going through, especially some of our travel industry folks. I would say the operations, it's not just giving some softwares or giving some advice or giving some consultation. So being with them and completing that journey, so the completeness or the breadth of it was really important for us. And finally, I would say the empowering model. So we have to see what all things can be done from the empowerment perspective, and that was the real key here, how empowerment can be brought. And this was really important for us. It's not only we, look, my team is small, I would say like 20-30 people who work together from multiple parts of India. And also we have few teams outside India. So this team, small team, is not going to make sense, is what we started thinking, because we had a bombarding with a lot of things and we never wanted to say a no to especially the purpose-driven model of our business. And if I rightly call it or not, we started approaching a lot of colleges, especially I would say the triple ITs, the several colleges in Kerala. I would say we already have a lot of interns here. So we found that when we started empathizing and engaging with the students, the results came out so good. So because they started understanding what is the actual need here. And I would say that is because earlier it was that we see them, they don't know this technology, let's teach them and come back. Okay, but here the entire concept got changed. They started understanding, okay, fine, what empathy really means and how you should apply that from a design perspective. I know there are several students who have not even thought about how a good design looks like, but they are the best now doing things for us from multiple arenas, I would say, here today. So the mantra here is, I would say, look, education, you need not bridge any gap in the education. It's how rightly you do the choice here. Okay, so you have to, I would say, from the perspective of technology, business, and all. So it's all how you plant your seeds. Like the guy Kawasaki has told about what do you say, the evangelization technique. It's all about how you plant your seeds. So I would say you plant as many seeds as possible. You do not expect everything to blossom. Few hundred of them might blossom. Then start localizing your efforts towards that. So that's what we have been doing recently, I would say. We have been approaching each one and everyone and making sure our partnership models are getting done, and especially the students, because they have the power. They have not only the power in their brain, they have the passion to do it and find that right passion. And I would say we are also trying to make sure the perseverance is really important, because you have to fail multiple times here. And they are ready to do it. Many of them, they are not just going down. They are ready to fail, because we are trying to make them engaged and make them fail, so that they learn more in this failure journey. And I would say the patience is also a really part of this job, what we are trying to do. And finally, we are seeing the results elsewhere. So that's why I wanted to bring the small story where we have been working with the cerebral palsy in the Autistic Society. And we could see people start walking back. And that's the best results that we could see from any other problems that we might be solving. Several problems we might have solved for customers, from the augmented reality, immersive experiences, robotics, and all. But when you see a person who has been on a bed and he was not able to catch up, and see a person walking back, and that too through a Zoom meeting like this, through a technology that we have been patiently waiting for, I would say success lies there. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful human story, bringing in the human touch and connection, which usually people say technologies are, very robotic in the way we approach things. But I think COVID has provided us an opportunity to recognize gaps in very niche areas, and then to understand this. These are our brothers and sisters, our own siblings who are suffering, not just from the lack of connectivity, but from other issues which we can solve and technology can help. So thank you for sharing that wonderful story. I think you brought out the compassion and contribution part that Dr. Chatterjee was mentioning. That is the most important element. And when it comes to empathizing, I have the very small example from my own college, Trinity, because when we started off entrepreneurship in 2012, the only examples that students had was Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and how to do this, that, Steve Jobs. So I turned the model around and I said, faculty should start up first. Before students, let few faculty go through the process, let them fail multiple times, let them understand the problem in giving salaries and getting a contract and landing a contract, so that then the students have somebody realistic to look at and model the behavior. And then the results are long-term, but long-lasting. So it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story.